Afternoon, Brian. How you doing?
Hey, Luke. Good to see you. I'm well.
Yeah, good stuff. So, yeah, welcome everyone if you're listening or watching. This is the Professional Liverpool Community Matters, and today we've got Brian Quinn, the famous Brian Quinn from TPM, TPM in the Liverpool City region, and we're going to be covering all about apprentices and how they work, how they've worked in lockdown, and all the questions that you might have about apprenticeships going forward. So, yeah, good to have you on the session, Brian.
Thank you, Luke. It's good to be here.
Yeah, just before we start, what's the best place for people to get in touch with you if they are interested in apprenticeships?
Okay, so very easy. We're available on 0151 709 6000. Our website is tpmnow.co.uk, and all of our social media platforms are at TPM UK. So yeah, we're on Insta, Facebook, and Twitter, and of course LinkedIn.
Awesome. So before we get into the good stuff and the thick stuff about apprenticeships, if you were to try and explain, what an apprenticeship is for the employer, in a few words or a few sentences, how would you describe the basics of it?
Okay. So I think a good way to describe an apprenticeship is that an apprenticeship is a real job where you learn, gain experience, and earn money. As simple as that. And I think that fits for both, whether you're considering an apprenticeship for yourself or whether you're considering employing an apprentice. Apprentices are real jobs where you're not already qualified in that job. So you're going to be learning, you're going to be gaining experience, you're going to be gaining very particularly knowledge, skills, and professional behaviors of a particular industry or sector.
Yeah, and how would that work from the business owner perspective then? So that's probably more for the apprentice side from a business owner perspective. If they were to say, "Oh, I'm thinking about getting an apprentice," so what is that?
I always encourage employers that I speak to, whether they come on board with TPM or not, to think about an apprentice as the succession planning journey that you engage in with a business. So whether you've started out and you're at day one and you're a single sole trader, you have a vision and you've got a goal for that, and you're going to need people along the way. An apprenticeship is a fantastic vehicle to think about how you create that succession plan strategy. So, if, for example, you're an administrative type of business, or you're a customer service type of business where you'll want someone to be contacting and engaging with clients on a daily basis, once somebody is able to do that and adept at doing that, that's going to free you as that sole trader to be able to go out and develop that business further. So my favorite catch-all is always think of apprentices as your succession planning tool.
Yeah, and just touching on what you've just said then, I think there's maybe a misconception or conception that apprenticeships are just for like your FTSE 500 companies, or your Jaguar Land Rover or your Airbus type things. They're not necessarily for big businesses. You mentioned about a sole trader. You could get one as your second member of staff.
Absolutely. Or that they're just for 16-year-olds leaving school. That's also not true. So yeah, there's many misconceptions and many concerns that do bother people, which is why it's good to have this opportunity to clear some of that up. Yeah, apprenticeships are for all ages. Of course, it works differently at different ages, the reality of that. And it is for all businesses. All businesses, in the main, would generally be eligible. There are, of course, eligibility criteria where government funding comes into play that would be expected. But yet, in the main, absolutely for sole traders and higher. Yeah.
Cool. So just before we get into some more stuff about apprenticeships, let's just a few questions about you, Brian, because obviously,
okay.
I've known you for I don't know how many years now from circuit, and business, and took an apprenticeship off you as well. But how did you get into apprenticeships, and more importantly, why? Because it's quite a niche and quite an interesting, and takes a particular type of person to want to do this and be able to do it. So what's the driver behind it for you then, Brian?
Well, the reality is I was working in a business that, one day I ultimately became involved in a management buyout, and that happened 20 years ago for TPM, for my business partner, Paula Hayes, and I. But really what drives me and why apprenticeships was something that I wanted to be involved in as a business kind of really just goes back to my own experience as a young man, as a boy, really. And the thing that drives me is I wasn't a confident child. I was a very quiet and shy child. I was always tentative and or scared, about exploring new things and being out in the big world. It's quite an irony now, because I kind of lead and head up so many different things, and I'm a gob on many things, but so that is the irony. And I think, ultimately that's it. My personal mission is to enable people to be and do whatever it is that they want to do in life, and to reach their fullest potential. So when that's about working with a young person around apprenticeship, I wanted to create a business where people could be literally who they are, not have to hide any facet or aspect of themselves. I've been an out gay man since 17, and I've championed equality from the minute that I knew what the word meant. So I really kind of, take that to that extra degree. When that's about working with employers, I'm really encouraging employers to see the full vision of their business, to help them find the right people, the right vehicles, the right qualifications to be able to get them to that place of ultimate achievement. Yeah.
I guess you're in a pretty good spot then to be helping, all these, these people who are on apprenticeships. And I guess that, and my other thoughts on that, just listen to what you've said, is that there's obviously, we're probably going to cover this next in terms of what the benefits to the employer, like why should they get an apprenticeship? But there's obviously the tactical business side of it, but there's also the giving those young people opportunities to develop and grow as well.
That's true. So, well, if I pick up on that, you've got very much a kind of business function, but you may well have very clear ideas and a great corporate social responsibility. So, all of those things come into play. We support both business employers and apprentices in different ways, from pastoral issues, supporting them through difficult challenges, choices in their lives, dealing with difficult circumstances. I mean, we've just been through something quite unprecedented for any average 17 to 25-year-old. And, we have a model of resilience building here at TPM. We call it making a splash. And the letters SPLASH are all kind of aspects of how we help young people build their resilience and deal with challenging things that comes along. But then employers have, difficult and challenging things to deal with too. So sometimes employers don't necessarily understand that actually they are an employed member of your staff. How do I treat an apprentice when it comes to, will you treat them the same way that you treat any of your other staff? All of the same policies and procedures apply. And, the things that you want to do to be able to encourage a rewarded and achieving and focused and dedicated workforce all apply to apprentices too, because they are one of the team.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get into lots of different chats around different levels of support and how that works.
Yeah. So there's defo like a benefit from a, feel good factor and CSR for getting these young people in business, giving them opportunity to grow in an organization. But from a purely business standpoint, then, what are if somebody's thinking about having an apprentice, what are the benefits of somebody having an apprentice in the business, and what do you find they are for the business owner?
So when we find the right candidate for an apprenticeship opportunity, they're coming along with a massive expectation, excited, keen, willing, open, wanting to learn. And there's a great satisfaction to be had as an employer about going home at the end of the day and going, I finally got John to understand how that spreadsheet formula worked today. It was such a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Jenny had her first experience today where she got over her fear of telling the children a story in the toddlers group, and she's over the moon. You know, she's been terrified of doing it. There are so many things like that where you gain a personal satisfaction, but there are really practical things too. So
Yeah.
if you think about you're growing your own, you're growing them in your house style. As an employer, as a senior manager in a business, you'll have a very clear vision and passion for how you want that business's services to be delivered, conveyed, and you're having the opportunity to be able to teach that. You've got a very significant role to play in how that young person learns that behavior, that skill, or the knowledge around that. You may feel very particular that a lot of people in your industry or sector skirt around knowledge or haven't got a solid basis of knowledge, and you've got an opportunity as an employer to play a significant part in that.
Yeah.
In
guess,
terms of education that they're getting.
And I guess a lot of it's around succession planning as well, like putting that young and like you say, energized people at the bottom of the organization to then develop and grow up. And I guess when you do put someone in an apprentice scheme as well, there's that loyalty factor as well. I guess you find that people, when they've gone on an apprenticeship, they tend to probably stay at that organization longer. I know that I think it's Branson.
Well, it's true. Yeah, you know, I mean, they are employed, and if the employer and the apprentice, you know, are getting to the end of that apprenticeship standard and want that to continue, there are higher levels of apprenticeship to reach for and achieve. And of course, they represent opportunities within that succession plan that you're talking about there to achieve higher levels and to move that workforce on. So for example, we deliver an apprenticeship standard in team leading. And whilst we're an early years specialist, team leading, business admin level 3 and customer service qualifications, they all fit in pretty much most businesses. So team leading is a great opportunity to bring more apprentices in at the kind of like starter level in an organization, and use the team leading qualification and give someone that kind of responsibility to step up into a supervisory role. So that's something that works repeatedly and very well. So again, that's a clear benefit to employers. Let's not forget the obvious one. You know, apprenticeships provide a real benefit in terms of cost effectiveness. You know, especially in this time where the economy is so recessed. And the government, of course, you know, put really good incentives in place to be able to support that initiative as well.
Yeah, I'm interested in finding out about the government because it's changing, and people like you as the people we need to find that information off because it's tough to keep up with all what's going on there. But just touching on what you said, then you've got different. You personally at TPM, you've got different types of apprenticeships that you do. So if you can just give a quick layman's overview of what's on offer and who that would be. Is it, because I know that you don't just do 16-year-olds, you do, as you said before, you do leadership apprenticeships for people who want to come to step up. So just give us a quick plethora of what the matrix looks like for the apprenticeships that you study.
So for TPM, we're an early years specialist. So that means that, we work with organizations who deliver care services for 0 to 5-year-olds. So that's private day nurseries and the like. We've got like 90 plus private day nurseries in our employer portfolio, as well as a significant number of, variety of different businesses. So in the early years sector, obviously we deliver all of the qualifications for that sector all the way up to the management level. And we have a whole range of CPD courses. We have an online training platform. Again, there's over 40 plus qualifications on there. They're all CPD based, so these are all post-qualification. So for the early years sector, our mission is to be an end-to-end provider for all of your training and development needs in that sector. Mm-hmm. But of course, we didn't just land on the planet as an early years specialist. Over 70% of the business that we did last year was with the early years sector. But we also have a good proportion of our business, almost 30%, in the wider business sector sectors. So we deliver customer service, business administration, and team leading to those sectors too. It probably won't end there, but for now, that is our portfolio. We also have the CPD Online. So the CPD Online is for pretty much any business. There's a whole range of stuff in there, from safeguarding to pediatric first aid, to managing conflict, to mental health awareness, you name it. There's tons of stuff on there as well. All really good, reasonable prices too. And between 4 and 7 hours of CPD training in there too.
So for the early years, it's not just putting people at the bottom. You've got training right the way up the ladder of, different in terms of seniority. And then you also do other apprenticeships for not necessarily early years businesses, but other types. And is that just at the bottom level, or is that's leadership courses throughout?
So customer service is at level 2. So that's kind of like post GCSE or A level.
Yeah.
Business administration doesn't exist at this moment in time at level 2. So that's at level 3. So that's an advanced qualification. So that's somebody who'd already have kind of left school and gained some working experience and so on, and be in an administrative role with some responsibility. Team leading is first step to management. So it's a standard at level 3. And that's for a supervisory role, really. So either supervising systems and procedures, or a small number of staff, typically a small team of people who lead on something in a business. So yeah, as you can imagine, that fits in pretty much a wide variety of businesses.
We've got customer service, team leading, business administration, and the whole plethora for the early years as well. That's right. So we mentioned a bit earlier on about government changes and all that sort of stuff, and I know it changes every year, but it's a bit of a pain for you when it all keeps changing and I've jumped through different hoops. So what's the current situation now then, Brian, with apprenticeships? Okay.
Well, I mean, the reality is that the world of further education always changes, because it shouldn't stand still, really, should it? And yet it's a challenge when information changes and when qualifications reform and so on. But that's something that we've been doing for 20 odd years. So we know how to deal with change. It's probably one of the reasons that we've been a successful business, and we can anticipate change and what that's going to mean to us. So for example, during the recent lockdown, we moved TPM lock, stock and barrel to a new home. We're still unpacking, but it's gone really well. So that was kind of like part and parcel of our response. We've taught remotely online from the minute lockdown happened. But the current situation that the government have given us is a great opportunity for businesses and to, I suppose, revive businesses, or for businesses who are starting up. So many people have started up a new business, Luke, in lockdown, as I'm sure you'd be aware. And the offer right now is that for 6 months only, so between now and January 2021, there is between £1,500 and £3,000 available in incentives to employers to create a brand new post. It must be a new post. For an apprentice within their business.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best way to describe it, to keep the terms simple.
Yeah.
The money varies based on qualification and based on age band and the circumstances of that person.
Yeah. So if I'm an employer, I'm thinking about getting an apprentice, whether I think it's going to be, whether I want to do it for the goodness of my heart, or whether I think it's going to be good for succession planning, or whether obviously it's going to be a cost-effective solution to a role. So 1,500 to 3,000, when do they get paid that?
Okay. So basically what the employer would need to do is to be able to set up a digital account. So basically what that means is you go to a web portal on the internet. It's a government site, and you register your digital account. That allows you to be able to then draw down the incentives that would be available. And in that digital account, appoint the training provider that you want to deliver that qualification for you.
So that's not the end of the 12 months. So that's in the first month
They
or
would
two
really
before you do
that
it.
right at the very beginning. That's
Okay,
right.
so you do that, you get that straight away, which is a bit, might pay for laptops or pay for a new desk or pay for some equipment or just go into the
Well, if you've got an established business and you're going to create a new post, it must be a new post for an apprentice. One of the first things that we'd be asking you to do, in fact, one of the things that we do if you want, is we can support you to do that as an employer. So we'll set that digital account up for you and show you how to do that.
Yeah, cool.
What that then means is you're then registered as an employer who's eligible for the government's incentive and able to draw down that incentive. It doesn't happen straight away, so it doesn't come ahead of the game. So there are milestones that have to be achieved for that incentive to be paid. But again, we would describe all of that to employers. I think the risk is that you give too much information up front and it can be daunting and that can feel overwhelming. And I think it's important to kind of like hook up with a provider that you kind of feel a sense of trust and understanding with. And that's one of the things that we try to do both with our learners and our employers is sit down and listen to them first and foremost. What is it you want? What you're trying to achieve? Describe the role to me. What do you want and what don't you want for that role? And support both the employer and then sourcing the candidates for that if they want us to. Many employers, of course, source their own candidate for apprenticeship.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that in a minute. I'm just trying to get, if I was a business owner and I'm thinking, right, I'm potentially making a decision and I'm going to speak to Brian, I might get 1,500, £3,000 in the first month or two done or drawn down. My next question then is the apprenticeships, can I start an apprenticeship at any time? Does it just happen in September? You know, when it's school year or how,
is a roll-on, roll-off program. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the establishment that's delivering that training for you. Independent training providers like TPM tend to have a roll-on, roll-off arrangement. So, so it might be that, you know, initial assessment and induction process is taking place between yourself and the apprentice and the training company, and there's a 3-week junction down the line where you'll join the learning process. So there are some getting started and understanding what it is that you're taking on, both for the employer and the apprentice. But generally, within a month, a young person would be learning and studying, yes.
Yeah, awesome. So then, touching on what you've just mentioned again, so we can start anytime, there's going to be some incentives around it. Now, I guess apprenticeships aren't for everyone and every employer. So as you said just then, the first step will be to go and speak to you or somebody like yourself to find out if apprenticeships would be the right thing for the business.
There's many places that you can learn about apprenticeships. The government provides a really good range of stuff online. Our own website provides a really good kind of like passive first step, if you like, to learn about what are we offering and what does that look like and sound like. Or you can just pick the phone up from the beginning and go, I think I want to take an apprentice on. What do I do next?
Yeah.
On our website, you could fill in a basic vacancy form if you know very specifically what that's about. But basically what we would do is we'd set up a meeting pretty much like you and I are doing here in the current kind of like restricted movement and just explore what is it that you want, how do you want that to look, you know, and we get all of the detail together then, and then we would make recommendation around what choices are available to you.
Yeah. So
some people are not, as you've said there, sorry, not looking for an apprentice. Actually, they need a member of staff who's already qualified. That does happen quite frequently, but generally we're able to help someone identify that and see that. And of course, we have associate recruitment agencies like Courtney Recruitment, for example, who we would recommend to someone.
Yeah, I had Courtney on the other week. She's she's cool and she's I really like Courtney. So if I know the answer is going to be, well, speak to me first, but if I don't want to speak to you first and just want to find out, what would be the sort of 5 considerations or 5 things that you'd ask if, you know, on that initial consultation, whether somebody's making a decision to get an apprentice or not? What goes into it?
Okay, so you want to know that you want to know that there's a job spec and what the daily duties and tasks look and sound like. So we would be looking to see if that's going to fit the eligibility and the criteria. And if it's actually going to provide the young person that we might recruit for you with what it is that they're looking for. If that's already existing and in-house, it might be around deciding what curriculum content is best for what you're trying to achieve within the organization.
Yeah.
Obviously, there will be some talk around, the eligibility criteria for incentives, because if that's what an employer wants to know about, we'll explain what that is. In the context of what that business is doing and what that is, and it varies from business to business. So it's important to kind of like just get that at the outset. To understand that the apprentice has to have time off the job for learning, to understand that much of the learning that the apprentice will want to do will happen in and around the workplace, that the employer might decide that they want to deliver some of that training themselves. That's a possibility and happens frequently. That's the whole idea of apprenticeship and apprenticeship standards and how they were designed by and with employers.
Yeah. So you basically be looking at, right, have you got a role? What's the right content for the learning modules for that? Obviously discuss about the incentives, making them aware that there's got to be, that there is on the job, off the job training as well. And is that facility?
Yeah.
And
what constitutes on and off the job? Because that can be a little bit confusing sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from that, if it's a go, you'll then take them through the next
Yeah,
steps.
we would decide, does the apprentice already exist in the agency, or are we going to be sourcing that young person for the company? How involved in that does the employer want to be? Generally, what we would do is we'd source 2 to 3 candidates based on the specification that we'd been given by the employer.
Yeah.
And travel distances, where the people live, how easy it is to travel, very important consideration. And another important consideration in discussing before we go with the employer is who's going to mentor the young person. And it's not always a young person, but it is kind of like part of our jargon. Who's going to mentor the apprentice on the job? Who's that going to be? And that's an important consideration. And is that facility there? Yeah.
And just touching on sourcing apprenticeships. So you said that either you can source apprenticeships or even the business can recruit themselves. So I guess the business is going to have their own recruitment process, and then that apprentice would then be approved or not by you, or enrolled by you. How would it work if you were to recruit then?
Well, that's the more common.
Yeah, because I guess that's a fear if I'm a business owner. It's like, look, all right, well, recruitment's a challenge. That's maybe why I'm getting an apprentice. I can't get people as an excuse. Yeah. So you would take that out of the hands completely then.
Yeah, we do. So we would liaise all of the way. So we would get the specification. We will advertise the vacancy on all of our social media platforms, on the government's National Apprenticeship website, which is a standard anyway. So we would have people from all around the region, looking at that, exploring that, making contact specifically about that role and or about that company. So they would go through an interview process with us.
Yeah.
And we would shortlist for different companies based on the criteria that we've been given by the company. We'd contact the company and put the young people forward for interview, and then we'd gain feedback from that process. So whilst that's taking place, we would then prep the young person around going along to that interview, making sure that they've researched the company, and thought about what that company is, how it does it differently to other companies in the sector, and getting the young person kind of what's sometimes referred to as work ready, but doesn't mean that they can already do the job, of course, because that's counter to what an apprenticeship is, isn't it? If they could do the job already, it'd be a recruitment agency, not an apprenticeship process necessarily. Yeah.
So you're going to get them ready, then they're going to get 2 or 3 candidates to interview. Now, my next question is going through my head. It's a bit of a leading question, but surely that's going to cost me some money, Brian, and all this stuff you're doing in the background. Surely I don't have to pay for any of this, for the training, the qualifications, the recruitment process. Am I going to get a bill for oh, by the way, for that recruitment, it was 3,000 for that person. I know you got your incentive, but you owe us for this. Or at the end of the year, by the way, you've had this 12-month program. You now need to pay for the training. How does that work for the employer?
It's the number one critical question, I suppose, isn't it? So we don't charge for recruiting apprentices for employers. So we filter that into everything that we do. That's part and parcel of our service. We've been doing it for over 20 years in the city, significantly more than 20 years. But in our incorporation, it's been 20 years. So we have a really great network, as you would imagine, in the city. So of where young people come from, recommendation. Most of our young people that approach TPM interested in apprenticeship have been recommended by their brothers, sisters, friends, cousins, and so on. So that's fantastic. We've got an amazing relationship with the school referrals system in the Liverpool City region. So it works. We've got great relationship though also with parents, so families who know what we do and support what we do. And then in the business community, we've got a whole nother level of recognition and support going on from the business community. So whether they've had apprentices from us in the past, whether they currently have apprentices with us and recommend young people to use us. So we've got a great in for accessing young people. So that doesn't mean that we just sit on a pool of amazing talent, by the way, because amazing talent doesn't sit still, Luke. I'm sure you know that. So it is a process that we manage, but it's not something that we charge our employers for. Other providers do, and quite rightly so. You know, there's quite a lot involved.
So the only costs to the apprenticeship then are essentially the wages that you have to pay that member of staff, and then computers, laptops, and desks.
That's right. And depending on the circumstances on the individual, the employer pays a percentage, a 5% percentage, a 5% contribution to that. Yes. Okay. Which is significantly low amount of money depending on the cost of the qualification, really. So we should probably leave it in just that, a 5% contribution for certain 16 to 18-year-olds are funded by the government.
Nominal fee. So if I'm thinking about getting an apprentice, or I've already got an apprentice, what would be your tips to managing them or getting the best out of them, Brian?
So treat them like you treat all of the other staff. Don't treat them differently. It's easy to do that, and it's easily done in a well-intentioned way, but ends up making the young person or the apprentice feel different. Right. And no one ever wants to feel different. So be clear with them about what their role is and isn't. Support them. Have a dedicated workplace mentor there for them. Let them know they're welcome. Let them know that they're an important part of the organization and just as important as anyone else. And give them a clear vision to which to strive towards. So, for example, when I induct business administration apprentices into our business, I try to point out to them roles and responsibilities that will be their future aspiration. So, for example, you know, there's every opportunity for you at some point in time to be leading that team of people there. And things like that. Getting a real sense from them that they can be heard. So ask them where they're going, what do they want, where are they aspiring to, and what have they already seen in your organization that they think that's what I want to be one day. And if you keep manipulating that respective vision for both people, everything should go well.
Yeah. And then if I'm a business owner, I might be asking this question, not the nicest question, but if they're not performing, how do I deal with that? Because I think there might be a fear, I've got this apprenticeship, I've got this course, government's paid for it, but they're not performing, turn up late, and I get the same disciplinary proceedings. You're obviously going to do it, not as tough. I guess it's the same process then as an employee if they're not performing or doing whatever.
Yeah, if you've inducted and made everything clear exactly as you would with any other employee, then that should be just as clear to an apprentice. Obviously, we're always on hand. So once you've recruited your apprentice, our relationship with the employer doesn't stop there. And we're always on hand to be able to advise and guide and support. But we would always be saying, apply the same rules, procedures and measures as you would with any staff member. It is on occasion sometimes possible for us to intervene and explore what might be causing the problem. And it is commonplace for us to discuss punctuality and attendance, whether that's to training, whether that's to work or not. And we do have those conversations. And we provide reports to employers on punctuality and attendance and progression from all of the aspects of learning. Of course, we live in a digital age and we have amazing digital support platforms for our learners to learn on and from. And employers can be just as much a part of that as they want to. So employers can see the same kind of progress measures and indicators throughout the qualification and attendance and punctuality as we can in our digital system. So something to bear in mind as well. Yeah. Ultimately, if things aren't going well, then the employer would terminate and the apprentice would then be coming to us and letting us know that. Ideally and usually we know if that's going to happen, because we'll have already been having a conversation about the issue and trying to support that and trying to support the employer and the learner to make that performance better.
Yeah. It was just if I was an employee and I'm thinking, well, I want to get an apprentice, but once I have to get, I do end up having to get rid of, the odd member of staff here and there. Am I stuck with them? The answer's no, but just deal with it, early as possible.
Yeah. Same employment law and practice stands for apprentices as it does for anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other question, I know people still might be thinking, well, I want an apprentice, but I'm in lockdown. You're still fully open business and placing apprenticeships.
Yeah.
And I think we mentioned a bit earlier, your sort of advice and guidance is, look, if all the business is working from home, maybe an apprenticeship you can't really start an apprentice working from home. If you're in the office, it's great, but it's not necessarily the best thing to work from home. Is that what your thoughts?
Yeah, well, the reality has been that when lockdown happened, we set a target for TPM, and that essentially was #TPM on target. And I set a challenge to the team that we wouldn't we would progress every single learner, and we've done that. We've done that very well. So all learners have continued to engage in learning and in a remote way and fashion. Some learners did work. So some learners were key workers and did work throughout, or were furloughed and then worked in that fashion. And some learners were just furloughed and continued to learn, which was fine for them. That was absolutely okay. And we are starting apprentices at this moment in time because the world is back out. Depending on the job role and the nature of it, it probably would be very hard to start and be furloughed. But I don't think most people are in that position right now. But that would be something that we'd explore fully, really, before we actually signed any apprenticeship agreements with any employer at this point.
I meant more working from home versus working in the office. So,
yeah, it'd be hard to start an apprenticeship and work from home. Yeah, that would be challenging. Very challenging indeed.
But if you're in an office space and you've got people in there and you've got a mentor that's maybe in 2 days a week, 3 days a week, but there's somebody always supervising in the office, apprenticeships are good to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And same in a nursery environment, absolutely.
Yeah. And then just last couple of questions then. So why would I choose TPM? A bit of a challenging question. Why would I choose TPM?
You already did.
Yeah. I know. Okay. Why would I choose TPM over other providers? Like, I'm aware of you. I'm not. Is the bigger provider small? Yeah, I don't really know too much about other providers apart from maybe a lot of the the larger huge ones. So why would I choose TPM?
Okay, so first and foremost, we want you to choose us as an employer for the right reasons. So the first thing we want to do is get to know about you and your business. We then want to be able to tell you where and how we can fit and match what it is that you want to achieve and set out to achieve. So we will always begin with a dialogue of getting to know you. So things that are in our favor about why you would choose us and why people say they choose us are that we've got a really long-standing proven track record. We've qualified just under 8,000 young people in the last 20 years. So we've got, I've got it written down here. Just under 7,975 separate qualifications we've delivered. We are obviously Ofsted inspected and successively have had good grades in those inspections. So the standard and quality of what we do is very important to us, but is also proven. We have a great team of people who've been with us for a very long time. They're highly qualified and very experienced in what they do. We have a great staff training and development program, so they're constantly training and learning. We've got highly skilled recruitment consultants who work on the recruitment side of the business for us, and have been recruiting young people to businesses for training and qualifications for the last 30 years. We care very much about service, our values, our opportunity, excellence, service, and recognition. And we pride ourselves in walking that talk on a daily basis. We're a silver standard investor in people, and we're Matrix accredited, which is around the standard and quality of our information, advice, and guidance. If we're not the right choice for the employer, we'll say so. So I think they're some of the reasons to answer your question.
So, and then the best, so if I'm thinking about apprentice, the next step then is a phone call or Zoom with you, right?
Sure.
And you'll go through 10 questions or 50, asking the question about the business and see if it's the right fit. Then you'll look at progressing it from there. Yeah.
Yeah. If anyone's got a broad spectrum, want to have a chat about apprenticeship as a result of seeing this, then absolutely, they can contact me. My email is brian.quinn@tpmnow.co.uk. Yeah. I would set up a Zoom or a chat, or a socially distanced coffee is always nice, and we are allowed to do that again, so that would be great. And we just begin with the who are you, what's your organization, what do you do, and how do you think an apprentice features in that? And I would explore with them if that's something that I think we can do. If we can, then I would introduce them to one of our two amazing consultants to begin an in-depth kind of like review of that and look at that process for them.
And just recapping on the type of apprenticeships that you specialize in, you do obviously the early years, plethora of different things. You've got
all the way through.
Customer service, you've got business administration, you've got lots of team building and team management roles as well. So there's all different sides. And I guess even if they don't know whether they quite fit in that, again, have the conversation with you. And if you know what you do, you'll point them in the right direction to somebody who does it.
Apprenticeship standards are available in so many different arenas and so many titles. So there's so many to choose from. So it's really important to choose the right one and get it right. But yeah, we've been delivering apprenticeships a long time. It's what we do. It's what we love. And we're very happy to chat to anyone about it. Whether we deliver it for them or they go somewhere else, we'll help them find them. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Brian. Well, we've sort of we've gone well over the 30 minutes mark, but it was getting interesting. I think there's a lot to cover, but so I think we'll wrap up. Yeah, it goes like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But so, just what your final remarks, Brian? What anything final to add before we wrap up?
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity. So talking about what you love and what you do is always a great thing to do. And I think, in terms of how I set out in life and, I was having this conversation day before with a really good friend. And we were talking about a certain subject. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. I've got a take on that. When I left high school, it was a long, long time ago, we used to be given a reference. It was way before the years of records of achievement. And my reference from school starts with, Brian is a boy of about average ability. And it absolutely destroyed me. It destroyed me as a young person, and it has driven me for the last 40 odd years. So never let anyone tell you that you can't. You can be whoever and whatever you want to be in the world. All you need to do is find the right people to help you get there. So anyone listening to this, whether you're a young person looking at apprenticeship, an old person looking at apprenticeship, an old person who's not done what they want to do, or you're a business starting out and you think apprenticeship might help, remember that. Thanks very much for the opportunity today, Luke. It's been great chatting with you.
Awesome. What a great finish. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, Luke Kay,
great weekend.
From Action Coach and wrapping up from the Professional Liverpool Community Matters. Over and out.